Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. Announcing the arrival of the Honorable Professor Dr. Sri Dr. Zaleha Kamarudin, Rector of International Islamic University, Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the national anthem and IIUM song. IIUM song.
Let's lead the way, light in the future, share the wisdom to the spirit of Islam. Revelation and reason, we shall sound, we shall prevail. Merging faith and knowledge, we the Khalifa, we will fulfill the amanah. Together, we make the world a better place forever. Expand the culture of Iqram. IIUM is to realize the meaning of Ramadan al-Alamin. Together, we make the world a better place forever. Expand the culture of Iqram. IIUM is to realize the meaning of mercy to all the worlds, for all mankind.
Thank you. Please be seated. I have the pleasure to call upon Ustaz Shahrul Hisham Izahar to recite the dua to invoke blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this symposium.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وله الحمد في الآخرة وهو الحكيم الخبير. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم أنت ربنا لا إله إلا أنت، خلقتنا ونحن عبادك، ونحن على عهدك ووعدك ما استطعنا، نعوذ بك من شر ما صنعنا، نبوء لك بنعمتك علينا ونبوء بذنوبنا فاغفر لنا فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. Almighty Allah, Lord of mercy and beneficence, bless this program with your pleasure and mercy. O Allah, Lord of bounties and infinite, shower upon us your divine guidance. Let our work and deeds be done in completeness and excellence. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. اللهم اجعل جمعنا هذا جمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما ولا تجعل اللهم فينا ولا معنا ولا من يتبعنا شقيا ولا مطرودا ولا محروما. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. تقبل الله منا ومنكم. السلام عليكم.
Amin ya Rabbal Alameen. Thank you, Ustaz. Honorable Professor, Dr. Sri Dr. Zaleha Kamaluddin, Rector of the International Islamic University, Malaysia, His Excellency Muawiyah al-Bukhari, Ambassador of the Embassy of the Republic of Sudan, and representatives of embassies, Honorable University Management Committees, and former Rector of IIUM, honorable guests and speakers, Professor Dr. Asghar Ali bin Ali Muhammad, Dean of Ahmad Ibrahim Kuliah of Law, Professor Dr. Hunur Abia Kaduf, Director of the International Center for Global Peace, Deans, Directors, staff, and students of IIUM, members of the media, participants, ladies and gentlemen. I have the pleasure to call upon Professor Dr. Hunur Abia Kaduf, Director of the International Center for Global Peace, Ahmad Ibrahim Kuliah of Law, to deliver the welcoming remarks.
Thank you very much indeed. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalatu wassalam ala ashrafil mursalin Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Honorable Professor Dr. Sri Dr. Zaliha Kamaluddin, Rector of International Islamic University, His Excellency Muawiyah Bukhari, Ambassador of the Embassy of the Republic of Sudan and representatives of embassies. I think I have also to salute Tansri Mai, although he is not here. Honorable Tansri Nurian Mai, Chairman of the Program of Global Peace, and I will let you know why I'm saluting him even if he is not here. Honorable University Management Committee and former Rector of IIUM, honorable guests and speakers, Professor Dr. Asghar Ali bin Ali Muhammad, Dean Ahmad Ibrahim Kuliah of Laws, deans, directors, staff, and students of IIM, members of the media, participants, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. It actually gives me great pleasure to welcome this wonderful audience into this wonderful hall to discuss very current issues that I believe will take us through into a wonderful discussion. Allow me to express my deep gratitude to the authorities of the university and the Honorable Rector for her unconditional support. To my professor, to my friend, Professor Walid Fikri and IIMU for his all-round assistance from the moment of choosing the topic of this symposium to logistics and even financial support. Thank you, Professor Walid. Actually, you have a very wonderful staff, and my staff are wonderful too. Of course, to my Dean of ICO, I say thank you for your support. To Pradana Global Foundation, Peace Foundation, for being with us all along to the last moment, I would also like to extend my thanks to the distinguished speakers for taking time to be part of this effort. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this half-day symposium has been carefully thought after and is expected to discuss multifaceted topics revolving around three main issues. First, one, fear of Islam and Muslims as being terrorists. Two, reverse fear of Muslims, individuals and countries, from President Trump's policies of anti-Islam and Muslims. The effect, the third one is the effect these mutual fears have on global peace. It is true that so much has been discussed of lately on the topic of American foreign policy brought about by President-elect Donald Trump. Some would argue that Trump was voted into office because of his discursive political discourse during his election campaign, generally about terrorism and particularly against or about Islam and Muslims. By thus doing, he succeeded in arousing populace fear and hatred to Islam and Muslims, at least by his supporters. That policy was put into action by the Presidential Executive Order under the Patriot Act 2015, dubbing Muslims as terrorists and banning citizens from 7 Muslim countries entering USA. It is worth mentioning that some observers noted that Muslims were engrossed by Trumpophobia from the very early days of Mr. Trump's candidacy campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, whether such fears were founded or not is something else. But the fact still remains that a situation has been apparently being created, leading to the polarization of mistrust, mutual fear, and finally, exasperating the already friable relationship experienced over years between the West and the Muslim world. This state of affairs, one would say, had given rise to negative effects on global peace. This symposium is therefore intended to discuss a variety of issues relating to the concepts of Islamophobia and the newly coined term of Trumpophobia and the effect both will have on the current fragile global peace. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all the best and hope you will enjoy the symposium. وبالله التوفيق والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Gun IIMU. It is with great honor I call upon the Honorable Professor Dr. Sri Dr. Zaleha Kamaruddin, Rector of International Islamic University of Malaysia, to deliver the opening speech.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Dear brothers and sisters, as recently as last week, we were shocked by a terrorist attack at Westminster, London, executed by a lone ISIS-inspired terrorist. Am I afraid? Yes, I do. Because I am about to bring 20 student leaders from 20 public universities in Malaysia to attend a week program, a long week program at the University of Oxford. And at the end of the program, we will visit the Parliament. 20 student leaders, which we call students parliamentarians. What does that mean? To inspire, to instill fear in people. We are deeply saddened by this incident, and our hearts and prayers go out to all the victims of the assault. The so-called Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, or ISIS, and many other terrorist organizations have always used violence to achieve 3 main aims. What are these? Number 1, to terrorize. i.e., what is the meaning of to terrorize? It's to inspire extreme fear in a target population, usually civilians. Number 2, to polarize, i.e., to divide communities as to create recruits through greater tensions. And the third is to mobilize its followers, that is, into carrying out heinous crimes against their fellow human beings. The cruel actions of these self-serving groups, in turn, fuel Islamophobia, that is, prejudice against Islam and Muslims in most parts of the non-Muslim world. Ladies and gentlemen, a phobia, what is a phobia? A phobia is an exaggerated, usually inexplicable and illogical fear of a particular object or situation. I said just now I was in fear, but what is the extent of the fear is because fear of the unknown. I do not know whether I could protect the student leaders that I am bringing them into London. I do not know to what extent the British security could protect the civilians. That's the fear that I have, but the categories of fear could be the extreme end or it's just a fear, the natural fear of the unknown. But has it come to the stage of phobia, as I mentioned just now? A phobia is an exaggerated, usually inexplicable and illogical fear. Is there illogical fear? I will explain. In recent years, a specific phobia has gripped Western society, and this is known as Islamophobia. Islamophobia was introduced as a concept in a 1991 Runnymede Trust report, which defines it as unfounded hostility towards Islam. It's not based on anything, it's just unfounded hostility towards Islam, and therefore fear or dislike of all or most Muslims. A few friends told me last week they traveled to Paris. They were spit at in public places, and they were told to go home. This was the extent of Islamophobia in Paris. It is not dissimilar to the more common framework of xenophobia. In essence, Islamophobia today is an exaggerated fear, hatred, and hostility towards Islam and Muslims. These are usually perpetrated by negative stereotypes, resulting in bias, discrimination, marginalization, and exclusion of Muslims from social, political, and civil life. Muslims, on the other hand, have been consumed. For the non-Muslims is Islamophobia. For the Muslims is Trumphobia. But Excellency from Sudan, Excellency Muawiyah says now they have Sudanphobia. You know? If I have my passport stamped with Sudan in my visit to Sudan, the next time if I go to the US, I will be treated as VVVIP. I had that experience traveling with Prof. Hunun. At that time he was the Dean of Ahmad Ibrahim College of Laws. We went to US. He has always had this VVVIP treatment, of which resulted that normally we will go to the airport 3 hours earlier, because he would have to go through VVVIP treatment for at least 1.5 hours. And this was way back in 2008, way before Islamophobia was coined. Now, what is Trumphobia? Everybody knows Trump nowadays. He's very infamous. I'm saying he's famous, but infamous. Due to the gripping fear of the consequences of the Donald Trump presidency in the United States. This trepidation was felt as early as 5 months after the announcement of his candidacy in 2015. The US president was consistent during his campaign that upon assuming office, he intends to close down mosques and remain committed to the complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States of America. This rhetoric materialized on 27th January 2017 when President Trump issued an executive order banning citizens of several Muslim countries from entering the United States. He is also preparing to cripple Muslim civic infrastructure by designing and associating Muslims with terrorist organizations under the pretext of Section 2339 of the Patriot Act. These developments have created a powder keg of increased hostility between Muslims and non-Muslims. Hence, a global peace initiative must stand at the crossroads in these volatile times. Thus, I have requested Prof. Unut, who is working directly with Prof. Walid, to come up with a roundtable discussion to discuss this. Because all this while, what was written in the papers, some of them are scratching on the surface only these very important issues. We are lucky to have Datuk Nasha, who is heading our global moderates, and he is doing his rounds now all over the world to explain the role of which we have to work for global peace. And there are similar institutions of which I was told that today a group of NGO leaders are here as well. And our students are taken out of their classrooms to attend this lecture so that they could at least understand the role that they could play. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in a recent Pew Research, non-Muslims, especially in the US, view Muslims more coldly than any other religious group. They give them a cold shoulder, including atheists. 16 years after September 11 tragedy, hate crimes against Muslims in the US and in Europe continue at a rate 5 times higher than before September 11. They account for 13% of all religiously motivated hate crimes, second only to those committed against Jews. Such crimes leave all Muslims with feelings of fear and insecurity, as one can never know when this hate and mistrust will turn into violence. And soon after that, as evidence, universities in Malaysia saw an increased number of students coming from Middle East who used to study in the US here in Malaysia. And Malaysia became the hub of education. This is to cater the fear that came from the US. Fortunately or unfortunately, the fear has gone, and now they have returned to the US. Now with Trump leading America, most probably, they are moving again back here. So we are taking advantage in terms of education. Whatever it is, education must go on. Ladies and gentlemen, because I am not the keynote speaker, only officiating the program, I feel that the fear of Islam does not prompt overt violence. It still leaves its mark, sometimes in more insidious and lasting ways, in the form of teasing, bullying, and discrimination that most Muslims endure in the Western society. We are lucky that we don't face this in Malaysia. Not yet. But as you know, whatever is happening in the Western world will come into the shores of Malaysia. It is easy to predict. Whatever is happening in the Western country, our country will never be spared. As for governance in the United States, the presidency, Alhamdulillah, is not an institution without any checks and balances. This, I think, our political science students should know. The judiciary, of which Prof. Unut was once in the judiciary in Sudan, decisively acted as a check to any infringement of the Constitution and demonstrated that by blocking the recent enforcement of unconstitutional executive orders that would have institutionalized the unfounded fear of Islam and Muslims, demonstrated the peak and victory of democracy and the global human value. But the judiciary can play that check and balance. Thus, based on the aforementioned factors, it is an undeniable fact that Islamophobia and Trumpophobia are globally on the rise. We need more than just the law to combat what are often deep-seated prejudices and attitudes that are the root causes of discrimination. Face-to-face interaction, education, and interreligious engagement are vital to breaking the grip of both Islamophobia and Trumpophobia. Common sense and a host of social scientific studies show that the best way to counteract prejudices is through education and positive personal interaction with members of the group. Islamophobic attitudes are usually based on ignorance, or worse, gross misinformation about Muslims and Islam. For instance, this can be seen in the recent hysteria caused by the boogeyman of Sharia law or hudud law here in Malaysia, at our very home. We had a discussion organized by Ahmad Ibrahim Kuliah Laws on Act 355. The fear is there. We invited a rep from the non-Muslims. They were saying their fears on the implementation of Act 355. It's actually an extension of the jurisdiction of the Sharia courts, which has nothing to do with non-Muslims. If they are caught in khalwat or taking alcoholic drinks, they will not be brought to the Sharia courts. So what is this fear? Perhaps the fear of the unknown. Many has been done, many explanation has been done, perhaps it's not adequate enough. Or perhaps they do not want to remove the fear because of some other fears. We do not know. So as academics, we have to do research, and it is the duty of IIUM as problem solvers, not problem makers, as problem solvers, to research on the threat of Islamophobia and to look into Trumpophobia, because it's very new. Trumpophobia is very new, which is part of our duty as reflected in the philosophy, vision, and mission of the university. Since Islam fundamentally rejects all forms of extremism, whether in the form of harshness, violence, or exaggeration, IIUM strives for integration, development of a well-balanced personality, and an equal emphasis on spirituality and intellectuality. And we have 30 students to be trained in this. Every year we graduated about 5,000, and we hope they have this mentality that they are peace-loving people. Now, ladies and gentlemen, IIUM, through its vision and mission, is supportive of the global initiatives to address fear of Islam and Muslim through collaborative research, lifelong education, and continuous community engagement. There's so many that we can do. In fact, before coming in, Tan Sri Rastam, through his ISIS, this is a different ISIS, and now he has some problem explaining to people that he is the chair for ISIS Malaysia. I think it's good. They have changed the name of ISIS to Daesh, but still some people still call it ISIS, and if he is still known as the head of ISIS, it's very difficult for him to travel. We have also discussed with Dato' Nashar. He is our alumni. that we could do a lot of research, in-depth research on understanding or profiling together with PDIM, Police Diraja Malaysia. We have the support of the IGP, who is also our alumni, and as an Islamic university, we must really understand who are these people, why they are in it, what do they get out of it, but we were told that they were promised Jannah. Not money, they were promised Jannah. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the holding of this symposium today is testament to the commitment of IIUM as a university towards combating unfounded fear of Islam and Muslims globally. I am of full support of this program and programs after this in relation to Islamophobia. It will not go away. It will not go away, at least I think, for the next 5 years. Although I am positively thinking that it will go off, but most of the time these are fired by certain factors and sectors to ensure that it will be alive, at least for a minimum of 5 years. So with Lafaz Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I hereby officiate this symposium on Islamophobia versus Islamophobia, global peace at crossroads. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Honorable Dato' Sri, for the opening speech. We shall proceed with the introduction of the theme of this symposium and the moderator by inviting Professor Dr. Walid Fikri Faris, Director of the International Institute for Muslim Unity, International Islamic University, Malaysia.
Good morning for all our guests here, Tansri Rector, Professor Dr. Zahra Kamuddin, Tansri Rastam, and also Datu Nashar, and Ambassador of Sudan, Mr. Muawiyah, all our keynote speakers, and also colleagues. Welcome to IIUM, and the representative of embassies also. In fact, we are a bit late, but we will catch the schedule accordingly. As may be stressed by Professor Manoj and the Rector, the main objective of such roundtables is to approach problems in a more rational and more deep understanding, not a shallow understanding of the complexity of the world that we are facing now. And this is why we invited 3 key speakers. 2 of them has a very long experience in a diplomatic relationship, and the youngest of them is a very promising political scientist, the head of our political science department, Dr. Khair. So I think according to the schedule, we will give each speaker around maybe 30 minutes. It can be more if needed. And after the round of the speakers, then we will open for questions, answers, comments, clarifications for everybody. And we hope to end our program around 12 o'clock, according to the schedule, a little bit later. And we hope also that everybody will try to understand with us and see what needs to be done. So the first keynote speech will be by Honorable Tansri Rastam Muhammad Isa, Chairman and Chief Executive of Institute of Strategic and International Studies, Malaysia. Honorable Tansri Rastam has actually a very long CV, and we have only a very brief one to say here. He has been in the diplomatic service for more than 36 years. He served in various capacities at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Malaysia Diplomatic Missions Abroad, including the High Commissioner of Malaysia to Pakistan, Ambassador of Malaysia to Bosnia and Herzegovina, Ambassador of Malaysia to the Republic of Indonesia, permanent representative of Malaysia to the United Nations in New York. He was the Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from 8th of January 2006 up to his retirement in 2010. We are, of course, honored to have him with us here. And without further delay, I would like him to please start here. Yeah, you can.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yang berbahagia Profesor Dato' Sri Dr. Zaliha Kamaludin, Director of IIUM, Professor Dr. Hunut, Ambassador of Sudan, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to express my sincere thanks for this invitation to speak at this symposium today. I'm told that I'll have about 30 minutes or slightly more. That is very generous. On Sunday, I was at a forum in China and I was given 8 minutes. Well, thank you very much. I have some slide presentations here. And I will go through them as we go along. Thank you very much. Now, this presentation is about Islamophobia and Trumpophobia. So, as far as we are concerned at ISIS, the objective here is, one, to demystify the Islamophobia versus Trumpophobia polemic. Secondly, to critically analyze several developments in President Trump's administration. And three, to deconstruct several misconceptions that have emerged since Trump has taken office in January of this year. So this presentation is not about a reiteration of Islam, that Islam is peace. It is not an attempt to demonize President Trump. And it is not an advocacy for the clash of civilizations thesis. So the key takeaways here, I think, should be that Islamophobia has existed in the West even before Trump took office. And there are legitimate reasons for Muslims to be concerned about Trump.